Hello, welcome to the Songbird Sade Knits YouTube channel. My name is Mercedes, and today I'm not going to do a regular podcast. Normally I would do a little bit of a longer format and go through what I've been up to generally and what I've finished knitting and what I'm working on. But I recently put out a podcast, a more full-length podcast. But since then, I've cast on a lot of things, and I'm also just feeling a little bit chatty today. So I thought I would try this little shorter format podcast. It's not going to be a vlog. I'm not going to walk around with my phone taking video for you, but I just wanted to do a roundup of what I've cast on to share with you, perhaps a little bit of autumnal inspiration if you're looking for a new cast on, and also to perhaps hold myself accountable to working on these projects. So I would say a few months ago, maybe as much as a year ago or up to half a year ago, I had been trying to get through some of my older WIPs and get them done so that I just didn't have them lingering and sitting around. And I was successful a little bit at doing that. And then when this autumn hit, I don't know what came over me. I just started casting on all sorts of projects. And I think I've been doing it with good intention, because I've cast on things, and then what I've noticed I've been doing is knitting a little bit on, say, 2 to 4 different projects every day, just a little bit on each project. And so in that sense, I'm revisiting the cast-ons a little bit every couple days, and so far they seem successful. So far they seem like they were good ideas, and my yarn choices were good, and that tells me that hopefully I'll have follow through with most of these cast-ons, as long as I can keep up the energy to look at each of them somewhat regularly, because I find if you just put a cast-on away and come back to it in a month or so, you can really lose the thread of what you're doing, especially if you put the cast-on away at a point where there might be some shaping that's going on or some more complicated stitch pattern. It can be a bit difficult to get back into the rhythm. And as I'm not using Ravelry much these days, I'm not actually taking any notes on my knitting. So for me to figure out what size I've cast on, I have to just look at my knitting, read my knitting, and that can be a bit of a barrier to picking up WIPs if they've been lingering for a while and not being looked at. So anyway, I don't know what I've done. I don't know why I've done this. I just have felt, I guess it's a bit of a creative energy to, mostly what I'm doing is finding yarn in my stash that has not been set aside for a certain project or had been purchased for a particular project, because that's usually how I buy yarn, but then I have decided since not to use it for that intended project. And so maybe I'm just feeling this psychic weight of these yarns that I have sitting in my stash that don't have a purpose, and I'm just feeling the energy to give them a purpose. And right now that's meaning casting on things that I certainly won't be able to finish for a while because of how many cast-ons I have, but it's giving me satisfaction. So let me show you some of these WIPs. And if you're interested, which I'm sure you are, if you're here for the knitting, I'm sure you're interested in what I'm wearing. This is the Genser L L sweater by Sandnes Garn. I think the publication is 2202. It's a great little booklet of patterns if you are able to find it. It has a lot of oversized knits, but also just wearable, very wearable pieces in my opinion. And some of them are simple and some are a little more complex, but they all sort of have a like a cozy quality, a comfortable quality, and a modern yet timeless quality, if that makes any sense. So I do think it's a very good value to buy that publication if you like their designs. And I think I've only made this so far from that book, but I'm currently working on another one, which you'll see shortly. So this is the Lou Genser. I showed this in 2 episodes ago. I showed it with me standing up. So I knit this in 1 strand of Briggs & Little Country Roving, which was nice to work with, but unfortunately it comes in 5 strands together in a plate. So I decided it was a good idea to separate these strands and use it for this sweater, and it was. The fabric is lovely and I really like the color, and it's very affordable roving, so it's you can get a lot of yardage out of 1 plate of roving, but to separate those strands takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. So it's not, I already had this in my stash, but I would certainly think twice about using it in this application as 1 strand in the future if I were to want an unspun yarn. I would probably instead go with Plötulopi. The colors are not the same, but I do love Plötulopi, so I would probably go for something that comes in a plate as 1 strand or even up to 2, but 5 was difficult to manage. Yeah, that being said, I do have more of it in my stash in a different color, and I am planning, I've already started separating the plies, and I'll be using that for a vest pattern. But yeah, I don't know how many more times I can do that. I actually have a remarkable amount of patience for these weird knitting related tasks that you have to do sometimes with knitting, like if you get a tangle somewhere in your yarn or just things like that, hand winding balls, all those kinds of things that are not knitting, but they're the preparatory work for knitting, or just sort of the things that happen around knitting involving the yarn. I have a lot of patience for those kinds of things, those kinds of tasks, but when I think about it, it's not a good use of my time at all. I should reserve that kind of patience for things that need to be done, such as maybe undoing a mess of yarn, like a nest that's been created somehow. That doesn't usually happen to me, but if it does happen, and not opting to separate plies of yarn. And I say plies, they're not really plies because it's an unspun yarn, they're just strands that are wrapped together in the plate. And then of course I used a strand of silk mohair with this as well. And this, despite the sort of loud color, is one of my most worn sweaters at this point. It's just so light and airy and soft and comfortable because it's oversized. It's absolutely I would say my favorite pullover right now to wear. So I'm sure I'll make another one or something similar in terms of the design, but using a similar combination of yarn, because yeah, it'd be nice to have this in a neutral color and maybe a darker color. Yeah, just a lovely yarn combination that I'd like to use more of in the future. Okay, I'm going to get my cast-ons. I don't even know how many there are, so we'll find out together. Okay. Oh, I'm also, I'm realizing some of my videos, my episodes, full episodes, that the camera work is not very good. And I apologize for that. As I've said before, our house is, there's some minor renovation happening, and actually it should be done within the month for sure, maybe even this weekend. We're having a library put in and then a bookshelf in this living room. And so we have piles of books and boxes everywhere in all corners because our house is quite small. And then of course there's child things everywhere. So I'm often just trying to find, this is the corner that I like to sort of sit in best, but sometimes it doesn't quite work here. So I'm just trying to see what this looks like, and if it looks good, then I'll try my best to continue from this angle. When I can't be outside, of course, because that's my preference. I think the lighting's better outside, and there's less visual distraction where I'm able to sit on my back deck. Yeah. So let's do the cast-ons that I've done since last time, and then I don't know yet if I'll show you the works in progress that are ongoing in addition to these cast-ons. I showed them in the last episode, but I might show them after this as well. So something that I just cast on this morning, I was getting dressed and I'm trying to keep a mental note of the things that I would like more of in my wardrobe. Because usually when I'm knitting, I factor that in, of course, when I'm choosing patterns. But it's more intuitive the way I choose things typically. I'm sure that that factors in, but a lot of other things play into that as well. But I'm just taking note of, yeah, when I'm getting dressed in my wardrobe and thinking, oh, I'd really like something like this, and then realizing I don't have it. So when I got dressed today, I didn't actually wear this out. I wore something different because it's very warm outside. What I was looking for was a light knit blouse, similar to, say, the ranunculus. I have the ranunculus in 2 different colors, but something more neutral and maybe something without the detail of the ranunculus. And I was looking through my clothes, and I have some cashmere sweaters that I didn't knit that would maybe serve this purpose if the weather was just a little bit colder. But on a day like today, you definitely want to be covered, but you do not want a thick sweater, and you don't want a cashmere sweater. So I thought, okay, a little blouse, maybe something like the Cumulus blouse by Petite Knit. And then I realized I already have the pattern for the Papis, I would pronounce it Papis Pullover by Midori Hirose. And I had cast that on a few months ago, and then I realized as I was knitting it that I'd completely misread the meterage requirements, and I didn't have enough yarn at all. So I went back to my stash, and I had this Rauma Fino in this, it's kind of a light rosy beige color. And it's a kind of a weird color for me. I bought it to make the Marit cardigan as one of the contrast colors, and I still actually might use this color, but I'm not ready to do the Marit cardigan. So what's the point of having this sitting around when I'm probably not going to get around to that cardigan even this year. So I thought I could use this for the Papis Pullover. It's pretty neutral. And then I also had a few balls of this peachy color by Silk Mohair by Gepard Garn. And I had bought this, why did I buy this? I can't remember why I bought this. I bought this for something, and it didn't work with that project. So now I have this sitting around. And so I thought these would pair well together. I would never really choose this color if I were just making something completely from scratch and not from my stash, but they do pair nicely together, and it's a color that I think will look fine on me, and it'll have, I think it can be worn like a neutral. So I cast on for the Papis Pullover in these two paired together, and it's a really nice fabric that it's created. Hard to show the color, but you can kind of see the color. It's peachy. It's a light beigey peach. So I think it can function as a neutral, and that's how I will try to wear it. I'll try to pair it with other neutrals and with colors that don't accentuate the rosy peach quality of the color, and that instead make it look a little more beige. So I'll have to play around with that when I'm wearing it to see how that works. Because yeah, as I say, it's not really my preferred color, but I think it's gonna be fine. And this pullover is, I love the fabric it's creating. The pullover pattern is written for 2 lace weights held together. This is a sport weight and a lace weight, but it's one of those classic Midori patterns where you can really change the feel of the garment by just changing the weight of yarn and also texture of yarn that you're using, and composition of yarn that you're using, because the needle size is quite large, so you have a wide range of yarn thicknesses that you could use for this pattern to change the outcome. And it's a blouse sort of style. I think it has a boat neck, and then it has a little very slight puff sleeve, and you can do sort of puffed capped sleeves, or you can do a longer elbow length sleeve. So I'm trying to go for the longer elbow length. And one other thing I'll say about this is that the construction is quite different and quite interesting. You're knitting sideways for a while, and there's an interesting provisional cast on as well, which I've had to do a couple times. I'm baking or roasting some vegetables in the oven. I had to do the provisional cast on a couple times until I understood what I was doing, but it's not hard at all. It's just different, that's all. So if you're up for a slight challenge at the beginning of your project and something a little bit different, I would recommend this pattern. I'd recommend this pattern quite highly. I think it's a beautiful blouse and quite different looking. If you're looking for something that's not just kind of like a shirt, plain shirt style blouse. So I cast that on today. Something else I cast on between the last episode, full episode, and now is a crochet project. And I don't know how this came together. I think I was thinking that I would like a vest, and I've been wanting to make a crochet vest for a while. I actually can't remember the name of this vest. It's not a pattern, it's like a tutorial that you can find online. I found it through someone I follow on Instagram. You probably know her. I think her name is Bethany Lynn Makes. Oh, gosh, I can never remember this. I think it's Bethany Lynn Makes. And she made this vest. I don't think it's her concept. It's someone else's concept, but she also provides a tutorial for it on her blog, I think. But you can also just look at it on somebody and make it. Just sort of, I think how you do it. Okay, so why don't I just tell you what it is first before explaining it. So basically it's a crochet granny square vest. So you make a bunch of granny squares. However many types of granny squares you want, and you then will be, I think you crochet them together afterwards. So I determined what you want to do is make a square that more or less will form the width of the shoulder piece for your vest, minus a little bit of width for the border that's going to be on it. And so you find whatever that gauge is, you know, whatever thickness of yarn, whatever size crochet needle or hook, and however many rounds you want to do in your granny square. And once you find your square, you then determine how many you need. So I think there's one on the top of each shoulder, and then one forming the armholes on back and front. Actually, I can't remember. In any case, I determined for my size, I would need 20 squares in total. 9 on the front, 9 on the back, and 1 each on the shoulder. So I just found some yarns that I wanted to use. I think actually what was the inspiration for this was this yarn right here. It's quite messy because this is from a pair of leg warmers that I made over 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. And I did wear them a lot, but I do not wear leg warmers anymore. They were just sitting in my sock pile collecting dust. So I thought I should repurpose the yarn. And it's a nice yarn. It's quite soft. I think it's an alpaca mix. I can't remember what it is. I know I got it in Kingston at a yarn store that isn't there anymore, but I can't remember what this yarn is. But it's kind of an orangey brown with cat hair and flecks of purple in it. So this is not really a color that I wanted near my face, in the sense that I did not want a scarf or a cowl or a hat made out of this yarn. It's kind of one of those wishy-washy colors. It's a very nice yarn and very nice color, but it's wishy-washy in my opinion, or at least on me it appears that way. So I thought this crochet vest would be good though, because you can add more colors in and sort of change the quality of the color by doing so. And so I just went through my stash and picked up leftovers from other projects that went with this yarn, and it turned out that I had lots of colors that went with this purpley mauve orangey brown feeling. I had lots. So it turns out this is a good color for me, I guess. So what I found was, let's see if I can show you all of them. Yeah, so what I found was I had this gorgeous, gorgeous rusty orange color. This is a leftover from a shawl that I made using the worsted yarn from Fleece and Harmony, which is they're located in Prince Edward Island. I feel like I've talked about this before, but maybe I haven't. I really don't think that I have, but I'm just getting feelings like I've talked about this on the podcast before. So I'm sorry if I have, but I really don't think that I have. I don't get that much sleep. So my memory is a bit fuzzy. Things that might have been in a dreamy state, I don't know if they happened or not. So anyway, this white is a beautiful alpaca yarn that I used as a contrast color in my Sean pullover, and it's from Twin Pines Alpaca. This here is that yarn, mystery yarn that I just showed you, which is quite fuzzy. And then this mauve is also from Twin Pines Alpaca, and I used that in my Sean Pullover. And one more color, I found a leftover ball of Let Lopi. I often have like leftovers of Let Lopi. I guess I use it a lot. I love Let Lopi. And so I'll often find in my stash like 1 or 2 balls of a certain color left over. And I had this, which I think it's a light gray, but it could be light beige. I'm not sure which of the two it is. I think it's the light beige. It's really lovely. It's a warm grayish color. So I paired all of those together, and then I made 5 different types of squares, and I need to now just complete 5 of each of the squares. So I've just been working away on that, and that's what I have so far. I love the color combination here. I absolutely love it. So this is a really fun little project to work on in between knitting, because I can just pick up one square and do a square pretty quickly and leave it at that, or I can continue if I'm feeling like it. If my hands are up to the crocheting, I find it harder on my hands than knitting. So that's a fun one. And then for the borders, I had contemplated using this inspiration yarn here, but I actually, as I said, I don't really want that to be the prominent color. It features in every square. I made sure to put it in every single square to have some have some cohesiveness throughout, but I don't want that to form the borders. I want something a little more neutral so that I can feel that this vest will go with almost anything. So I had leftover of the main color from my Sean sweater. I actually have, I think, a full skein plus a little bit left over. So I have plenty to make the border for this vest. And this is just a neutral, dark, very dark brownish gray. That's pretty much exactly what it looks like. So I think that'll tie in nicely with all of these colors and just provide a little bit of a neutral foundation for the all the colors appearing in the granny squares. So that's a really fun project. Okay. Next, next, again, finding problematic or sort of orphaned yarns in my stash and working with those, trying to give them a purpose. I turned once again to this yarn that is from Georgian Bay Fiber Co., which no longer exists. She was a dyer, and I got this yarn. I got 8 skeins of this heavy worsted yarn to make 100% wool yarn to attempt to make my own first pattern. I have a pattern on Ravelry, but it's just a bias scarf, so it's really simple. But I wanted to design this pullover that would be cabled and textured and have some sort of cable motif that would represent the spruce trees in our backyard. But this yarn was really not good for that purpose. It's highly variegated, and yeah, it wasn't also the right color. It's quite watery. I wanted something that's a little more blue-green. It does have green in it. You can't really see on camera. It looks totally blue. But I needed something more on the green side than blue. So then I started a Thea Coleman sweater, and I made so many errors on the sleeves in terms of increases, like just really not paying attention kind of errors, because it was shortly after my son was born, and I thought I was paying attention and I wasn't to the knitting. So I still have those sleeves just to look at. I think they have important information in them in terms of what this yarn looks like knit flat, using a striping method to alternate skeins, and then also with cables. It's instructive. Anyway, so I didn't unravel those yet. I'm just going into the next skeins that I have. But I still want to make my own design. I don't think I'll write it up into a pattern, but I do want to execute at least the shape of the sweater that I was hoping to make, if not the cables on the front. So anyway, I've cast on for that. This is the neck. You can see even the variegation really has a watery effect, the way that it forms these sloping lines. Obviously that'll look a bit different in the body when the rows are longer, but yeah, it does actually look quite nice with cables. It's just a bit busy, and that's not what I want. So I've cast on for the neck. I may leave it as a mock neck, but I'll wait and see until I'm done the whole sweater to see how I like that. I can always tack it down and just do a folded over neck. So I'm at the point now where I actually need to go buy another size of needle. And then what I'm going to do, I'll tell you my plan. We'll see if I follow it, but my plan is to do a horizontal braid around the base of the neck, so sort of right here. And I'm going to use bigger needles for that. And then I'm just going to do raglan shaping for the sleeves, and I'll probably keep everything just in stockinette in terms of the sleeves. But then what I want on the side body on both sides is a panel of seed or moss stitch, probably seed stitch, and it'll be framed by 2 cables of some kind, probably a small cable, and those will probably be fairly big panels is my feeling on that, so that you can kind of see them from the front, like maybe from this line down. That would be like where the cable would start. Maybe that might look weird. I might have to make them a bit smaller. So I'll just see. I'll see how many stitches I have on the body once I'm done the raglan shaping. And then I'll probably continue with the horizontal braid detail at the cuff and then at the hem, and I'll probably just sort of see when I get to the bottom hem how I want to finish that. If I just want to do ribbing, if I want to continue the panels down into the hem, not quite sure yet, but in my mind this is fairly simple. This is easy to execute, and the design is fairly simple. So the yarn, you know, people say let the yarn shine. I'm feeling I won't like the effect of this variegation, but we'll see. And then my plan also is to do some helical knitting, which I've not really done before. I won't do it every round. I think because of the way the color changes, I'm noticing it is regular, in a sense, somewhat predictable. So I think I'll just knit with one skein, and then towards the end of that skein, I'll start helical knitting so that I can kind of blend in the next skein. That's my plan. I hope it's gonna work. And yeah, so I cast on for that, and I'm feeling good about this version of this sweater for this yarn. I also had tried a Gansey with this, but it was bottom up and I just was not feeling it. So now that I've cast on for a top-down sweater, I could also just do the simplest raglan sweater and it would end up being fine. So I feel confident in the size and the shaping that that's all going to work out. And it's more just about changing and alternating the skeins that I have concern about. But yeah, if you have any tips on that, let me know. If you think my idea for the helical knitting, but only to sort of blend from one skein to the next, is a bad idea, please let me know. Yeah. And I know in helical knitting, I think you can only do it in stockinette stitch. So that's my other reason for wanting to minimize the areas where I'm using helical knitting so that hopefully I can keep it in the stockinette portion of the body and not find myself needing to do it in the seed stitch panels, because I think you can't do it in purl stitches. I don't know that either. So yeah, if you have any experience, let me know. Okay. Next, cast on. Again, I don't think I had cast this on. I think I just cast this on like 2 nights ago. I'm doing the Amy Slipover from the same Sandnes Garn publication that this Lou sweater is from. And this is actually the reason why I bought that publication, is because I wanted to make this slipover. I saw Inga make it from Knitting Traditions, and it's just a really nice slipover. It looks fairly, I would say, it doesn't look basic and it doesn't look simple. It just has an elegant quality to it in the sense of simplicity. It's a slipover that has a tie to close at either side, and it has a big turtleneck on it. So it looks like it would be very easy to wear with almost anything because it's not going to be tight in any area, and you can sort of adjust that at the sides with how tightly you tie the ties. And yeah, I think that I really like the style of it. So I finally cast that on. The reason why I didn't cast on right away for it was because I wasn't sure what color I wanted. I thought I wanted black, like what's in the photo, or maybe it's charcoal, it's hard to tell. But then when I'm getting dressed, I often avoid the black in my wardrobe, the dark black tops that I have. And I even have a black vest that I made ages ago. The vest itself is not that great, and that might be why I don't wear it, but I also suspect that the black is part of the reason why I don't wear it. I just find black, a lot of times, it doesn't add to the outfit. It just kind of is there, if that makes sense. And I don't like that. So I had actually bought black yarn specifically for this project and then thought that I wouldn't use it. But after reviewing many other slipover patterns that I'd like to make and reviewing some yarn that I have for those other projects, I thought it's okay to have a black slipover in my wardrobe. It's probably useful. And this one, because of the oversized style of it, I think it has personality on its own in terms of the shape. And so maybe it will add to my outfit in that respect, if not in the color respect. So I'm hoping that I'll be happy with my choice. I will say the fabric is really lovely. So I'm using from Hillersvåg, I think it's the Solia. This is the yarn that is the fingering weight version of Tinda. So same colorways, and it's the same Norwegian pelt wool. So it has a very fuzzy quality. I love this yarn. It's along with W.I.P and I would say so far, W.I.P and Tinda or Solia are my favorite yarns to use. I love these yarns. I just love the feeling so much. So I got the black in that yarn, and I'm pairing it with a silk mohair. This one happens to be from Drops. And the silk mohair does have actually little flecks of gray. I think it's just the silk actually that's not solid black. It's sort of a gray. And so it adds a very, very subtle, you probably will not be able to see that. Oh, you can a little bit right here. It adds like a little bit of a subtle highlight to the yarn, to the fabric, and maybe gives the impression a little bit of a charcoal color, but it is basically solid black. So this is very fuzzy. It is almost like fur with how fuzzy it is, but I think it's actually a very special fabric that it's creating. You might think it's a bit overdoing it to pair Tinda or Solia with silk mohair, and I thought it would be kind of a waste of the Solia, but no, it's really nice. I really like it. So anyway, I cast that on. This is going to take a long time because it's on small needles. These are 3.5, so it's going to take a while, and yeah, it's definitely hard to see this at night. Luckily there's no complicated stitch pattern, but if I have to do increases, I'll have to certainly mark them because I won't be able to see them at all. Okay, that's that cast on. Okay, this isn't a cast on, but it will become one shortly. Oh. Let me show you something different, actually. Okay, this is not a cast on, but this is something that I have started reworking since last time. This is a Jennifer Steingass pattern. I think it's called Deep Water, Dark Water, I think it's called. I knit this quite a while ago, years ago, and I completely knit it in a different gauge than the pattern. I always do that with her patterns for some reason because I'm often using W.I.P. This time I used a thinner yarn and the results were not that great. I find it a lot easier if you're using thicker yarn to change the gauge of a pattern and still follow the size. To use thinner yarn, no, it results in some weird shaping issues, weird fit issues. And I knew this about this sweater and I've worn it a lot, but only recently did I notice when I put it on that the front neck came up really high and created this very strange like flap of stiff fabric that just was up high on my neck. And I thought, wow, that's really unflattering. I can't believe I didn't notice that before. So I looked up a tutorial for how to cut into your knitting from the cast on down. That's very easy to do and not scary at all. I didn't even use a lifeline. I just cut the knitting and unpicked and then just put a needle through the live stitches. And so now I'm at this point. It's too wide as is when I put it on to just bind off at this point. I do need to do some other things. I think I need to add some short rows, and then I'm not quite sure where to go from there. Even at this point, I probably cut off about this much, even though at this point the neck still is up high at the front. So I'm hoping I can fix this. It's a pretty nice sweater. It's not one of my favorites, but it's nice enough and it's comfortable and wearable, so I'd like to fix it. So what I'm thinking is I will have to add some short rows for the back, and then I'm thinking an interesting way to maybe hide the fact that the front is a little bit high is to go ahead and just do a long collar, like maybe a mock neck, maybe a funnel neck. I don't even know if there's a difference between those things, but something like that. And then maybe it might just kind of mask the fact that the stockinette part is also sitting up high on my neck. It could also accentuate it, so I'm not really sure what to do there. I think I'll do the short rows and then try it on and see if that fixes anything. I haven't wanted to tackle that yet because I need to figure out where the center of the sweater is, which is a little bit challenging. So haven't done that yet, but I did one of the hard parts, the cutting. Okay. Thinking about, right, okay. So I don't think I'll show you my works in progress that I already showed last episode because there's also a lot of those and you'll probably see them again in a more fuller episode. So I don't think I need to show them here. I'll just show you one last thing that I haven't cast on yet, but I will be casting on quite soon. The only reason I haven't cast on is because I'm using the black yarn in the Amy Slipover, but I was going to use that for this, and I'm sure I have something else in my stash. I just need to look. Or I could just break into another skein for the Amy Slipover and just use a little bit, because I'm sure I'll have a little left over, and all I need is a little bit for this project. So this is from a book. I'm going to be, so it's from this beautiful book, Milarrochy Heids, by Kate Davies. And my sister got this for me when she was hiking the West Highland Way in Scotland. She got it in one of the towns that they were in. She went into a knitting store and bought me a book, which is extremely appropriate and really nice of her to think of me and carry this. So there's so many nice hat patterns in here. I'd like to make a tam for my sister eventually, but what I've decided is I really want to have nicer hats in my wardrobe. I have some really nice hats, but they're all pretty rustic. I'm not really that sensitive. I can wear scratchy wool on my head. Yeah, it itches me, but it really doesn't bother me. But I'd like a little bit fancier hats. I have some felted berets, like from a shop, that I wear a lot, but I'd like some knitwear that will perhaps go with some of my mittens and things that I've made. Or just be, you know, standalone nice hats. Speaking of which, I actually cast on another hat. But it's too far away to go get, so you'll see that in the next episode. It may even be done by then. And of course I used stash yarn for that one as well. But the next one I'm going to cast on is this tam. It can also be knit as a beanie. It's called Tettegouche, and I think it uses I think it uses 5 colors. There's the top. So I love this one. I picked it because it doesn't use too many colors. It's quite manageable. And for color work, for a hat, 5 colors I feel is, yeah, a pretty manageable amount. It's a lot to sort of conceive of and put together, but it's not over that. I feel, I don't make swatches, so I feel 5 colors, I hope I can kind of get that to look good without making a swatch. Any more than that, I feel is just, it's just too hard to hold in the mind how the pattern's going to look with different colors. So I'll show you my colors. So the main color for the hat is going to be this, which is just a natural sport wool from single ply from Topsy Farms. I'm stealing this from my Muckle Row sweater. I don't think I'm going to need it at all, so I think that's going to be okay. So that's the main color, and then the black is going to form part of the contrast. I'm going to, let me try it. Okay, here's a good picture. For the brim, I'm going to use black, but in the photo you can see the designer uses this dark plum color, and she uses it here as well. Instead, I'm going to use black where you see this bright, oh, how am I, no, is that what I'm gonna do? Yeah, where you see this bright orange, that's where I'm gonna use the black. So it's gonna be very little black in the hat because I don't want much in there, but I'm gonna use the black on the rim. So black here, and then this bright orange is gonna be black instead. Then, where the designer uses, plum, yeah, see, I haven't quite figured this out. Where she uses the plum, I thought I would use my dark maroon color here. This was left over from a ranunculus that I made. I think this is BC Garn. I know it's BC Garn. I don't remember what. So yeah, that might not stand out against the black. I will have to think about that a little bit. But I know I'm going to use all these colors for sure. So that's 3 colors now that I've shown to you. The next color I'm going to hold together. Whoopsie. I'm going to hold together this silk mohair with this mohair and wool. I used this in a ranunculus with that BC Garn yarn that I just showed you. And then this mohair I used in a pair of mittens mixed with Briggs & Little. And so what I'm hoping, because I'll have this red in there, I'll have the black in there, I'll have just a plain undyed yarn. I'm hoping it'll go with quite a few of my mittens that I have and scarves. And adding this red will then mean I can wear my red mittens with a hat that matches them. Red is not really a color that I use very much in my wardrobe, but I really wanted a pair of red mittens. So it'd be nice for them to go with something. So they could go with this tam. So this red, I'm not sure. I'll probably, if I'm going with this plan that I'm telling you about, this red will actually go where the blue is. So I'll sort of have darkest going out to lighter. That's my hope. Then where you see the green is where I'm going to put this gold color. So these I did hold together for a ranunculus, my favorite ranunculus, which you've seen certainly before on the podcast, perhaps a few times. And again, this is a silk mohair. Isn't that funny? No, I'm getting confused. This silk mohair actually is left over from the sweater that I'm currently wearing. This is Dusty Honey from Knitting for Olive. For the ranunculus that I made, I just held this silk mohair double. I think. I can't remember. And this isn't silk mohair either, this little ball. This is mohair and wool. This is from a place local to me called Wellington Fibers. They do really beautiful mohair and wool blends from their own goats and sheep. And it's really nice yarn, really nice, very warm. So I would hold that together and that would be where the green is. So my only question there is the black and the burgundy so close together. I might have to change that up a bit, and I don't really know, I can't think of it on the fly how I would do that, because I like the way that other than this pop of color right here, the flower goes from darker to lighter, and I want to kind of keep that going. But I do see the value in having this bright color in the middle. So, and my colors are definitely brighter. So I might, yeah, I'll just have to give that some thought. And yeah, anyway, that's my next cast on, probably fairly soon. But as you can see, I have a lot to keep me busy. So, and that's in addition to the other works in progress that I have on the go. So yeah, I'll check in with you again, I'm sure sometime soon, hopefully, and show you my other works in progress and hopefully have some finished pieces to show to you at that point. So thanks for watching today. I don't think I'm going to put any notes on this episode because I was hoping for it to be quick. But these things will be reappearing in my regular episodes, in the longer format episodes, and I'll certainly put notes on them below in the next video that they appear in. So until then, take care and happy knitting!